Math 140, day 2. So we've got notes, and today I hope we will actually have video to go with them. So you got a talking head. I want to talk about a question that came up on the first day, namely PEMDAS and the order of operations. So this is about addition, multiplication, subtraction, division, exponents, and parentheses. And starting off, look at examples. For the order of operations, namely where it matters and where it doesn't. Let's look at 3 plus 5 minus 7 versus 3 plus 5 minus 7. It turns out they're both the same thing, okay? So we put a nice equal sign in between. And the parentheses obviously means that we've got to do the 5 minus 7 first on the left, and we've got to do the addition, the 3 plus 5 first on the right, and then the other operations. Okay. So now let's see what happens with 3 minus 5 plus 7, like this, and compare it to 3 minus 5 plus 7. Again, you've got to do inside the parentheses first. So I got 5 plus 7, 12, and the 3 minus 12, that's something negative. And on the right, you got 3 minus 5, it's negative 2, plus 7, that's plus 5. On the left, we got 3 minus 12, which is negative 9. So they are different. So in the second example, the order of operations matters. Sometimes. In the second example above. For the cases when the order of operations does not matter, you can't do the addition first or the subtraction first, it doesn't matter, then we can allow ourselves to just not write parentheses. Skip parentheses. So we would just, for the first example, write 3 plus 5 minus 7. In the second example, to really pick what we mean, we can't just skip the parentheses. It's either this or this, left or right. But If it doesn't have parentheses, then reasonable people will just say, do it in the order in which they come. In the second example, if somebody writes 3 minus 5 plus 7, well, there's two different ways of interpreting this. We interpret this by default as do the operations in the order in which they're written. So you mean 3 minus 5 in parentheses, that means do that first, plus 7. By default. All right, so that explains how we can save on parentheses by giving meaning to, or giving an unambiguous meaning to ambiguous expressions. And the other thing is, if we want to resolve parentheses, if you want to get rid of them, are rules. 3 minus 5 plus 7. When it's written like this, so there's a clear meaning to that. That's not the question. But you want to get rid of these parentheses. And there's a clear rule, which you may have learned already. If you're not quite sure, pause the video at this point, think for a second, and try to come up with a rule that works not just for this example, but for every example where you've got this pattern. You've got a difference, and what you're subtracting here is a sum in parentheses. Pause for a second. Have you come up with something? Have you tried it out on a different example? Okay. Let's see if it matches up with what I'd come up with. My rule that I have come up with, which will work for every possible example like this, when resolving a parenthesis with a minus sign in front and a sum or difference inside. You can do that, but you need to flip all the signs inside. Let's see what it does for this example. Three minus 5 plus 7 is the same as 3 minus 5 minus 7. And now that is true. Both of these are equal to -9. check. It works. It also works if there's more than just two things being added or subtracted inside the parentheses. When you're removing a parenthesis with a negative sign in front, flip all the signs. If you're removing a parenthesis with a positive sign in front of it, you can just remove it. It's gone. And you still have the same quantity. So that was something like my first example. All right. Now for multiplication or division entering the picture. Let's look at some examples. Three times 5 plus 2 . On the other hand, 3 times 5 plus 2 . With the parentheses like this are not the same thing, okay? Not the same thing. So the order matters in which we perform these operations, and it has to be specified by parentheses. But again, we have a default to save on parentheses. And that is do the multiplication first. Even if it's written second. One example for this, 2 plus 30 times 5 needs to be done like 2 plus 3 times 5. Okay, even though at first, when you read it from left to right, it says 2 plus 3, and you can't do it yet. You've got to do the multiplication first, and you come up with a different answer than if you did 2 plus 3 times 5, because multiplication has priority over addition. Okay, so what about division and multiplication versus subtraction? I like to write it as a diagram. And include also parentheses and exponents or powers, if you look at it differently. Multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. So the highest parentheses, the highest priority is the parentheses. And then exponents exponentiation. Have the next highest priority, and then multiplication, division. Are on the same level, and finally addition, subtraction are on the lowest level. And that is what you may have learned in high school as PEMDAS. But it really should be the multiplication and division on the same level and the addition and subtraction on the same level as on their own rung of the ladder. So if you got additions and subtractions that are written without parentheses, you do them in the order in which they come. That's what they mean when they skipped on writing parentheses. But if there's multiplications, divisions in the mix, you got to do those first before you get to the adding and subtraction. And if there's even exponents, you got to do those even before the multiplication. So one example. Four times 2 cubed divided by 8. How should we do this? We need to do the 2 cubed first. Exponentiation has the highest priority. And you can replace where it says 2 cubed by an 8. So what we really see here is 4 times 8 divided by 8. And now we've got multiplications and divisions, and we can do them in the order in which they come, and the answer is 4. That would first be replaced by a 32, and then divided by 8, and the answer is 4. Of course, the smart way would be to see multiplied by 8, divided by 8, cancels. We don't have to work out what 4 times 8 is. That's a different matter. If you're going like a computer, a robot, do them in order and you will arrive at the same and correct answer, just a bit slower. I'll leave you one example that has it all. Two minus 3 times 5 minus 1 squared. And can give you the answer in lecture tomorrow. Good night, everyone. Have fun.